7 kinds of people are listed for your first IEP meeting. The number the excusal rule can empty is 4. Excused, in writing under a rule most of the building quotes wrong. That excusal rule has a second version nobody sends you, and I am going to hold back the one word it turns on until you have seen the first half.
Hi all, I'm Erica. Think of that membership list as a roster, not a guest list. The parents are on it first, ahead of the district, ahead of the case manager, and that ordering isn't decoration. A roster is who has to be there. A guest list is who got asked.
Last episode was the long horizon, transition planning, and when that clock starts. Today it shrinks down to one table. Everything this series has built shows up in that room at once, and the room runs on rules nobody hands you at the door.
Chris here. The general education teacher is required if the child is or may be in the regular classroom. May be. That's 2 words doing a lot of work.
The text says it plainly. If the child is or may be participating in the regular education environment. So a team that's planning a move into general education needs that teacher there before the K.
Who's deciding may be, though? The team or whoever built the schedule?
Move, not after it. And nobody in that regulation gets to settle it by scheduling convenience. If general education is even on the table for this child, the invitation goes out.
Other people can be at that table too. Either the parent or the district may bring someone with knowledge or special expertise about the child, and here's the part that surprises teachers. The side who invited that person is the side that decides whether they qualify.
So a parent brings their own person and nobody vets them. Cynthia, is that really where the line sits?
Correct, and there's a headcount wrinkle underneath all of this. The agency may designate someone already on that team to also serve as the agency representative, so 4 required chairs can genuinely be 3 human beings. Which is why it helps to see the whole roster split in half. 4 of the 7 sit on the side paragraph E can reach. The regular education teacher, the special education teacher or provider, the agency representative, and whoever can interpret what the evaluation results actually mean for instruction.
Paragraph E never reaches the other 3, the parents, anybody either side invited for knowledge or special expertise, and the child. Whenever appropriate, the child with a disability. That's the regulation's own phrase, and it sits inside the membership list, not down in a footnote somebody can lose.
Whenever appropriate, not whenever convenient. Cynthia, say the version you said in the hallway before we started. That one's the video.
Fine, but I want it on the record that it sounded better in the hallway. If 4 of the 7 can be excused, what's actually left of a required IEP team meeting?
More than you'd think, and the answer is sitting in one paragraph. But I'm not going to hand you the paraphrase because the difference between the 2 halves of it is a single word.
Then that's where we're going, and I like our odds because once you can hear the difference, you will never sign the wrong one again.
You 2 keep arguing about the room. The room isn't the question.
He's right, and I'll go further than he will. The room isn't even the hard part. 1 paragraph is, and the question. Real quick, because this next part matters to you. If any of this is helping, tap that like button, then hit subscribe and ring the bell so the next one finds you. Both are free and take about a second, but they tell the algorithm to show this to one more person who needs it. Is which half of it applies. Chris says paragraph E is 1 rule with a footnote. I say it's 2. Professor Rahman, break the tie for us.
2. Paragraph E1 and paragraph E2 describe different situations, and they do not ask the parent for the same thing.
Fine, wrong about that. But you still walk into that room and there's an empty chair at the table. Nobody tells you which of the 2 rules emptied it.
I can walk you through how both tests work cold. What I won't do is paraphrase the wording from memory because the difference is 1 word, and 1 word is exactly what memory sands off. Pull the page. Paragraph E1. If the member's area of the curriculum or related services is not being modified or discussed in the meeting, the parent and the public agency may agree in writing that the attendance of that member is not necessary. Agree. That's the word it uses.
Read me the actual line for the other one.
Here's the ruling, straight off the page. Paragraph E2. When the meeting involves a modification to or discussion of that member's area, the parent in writing and the public agency consent to the excusal, and the member submits in writing input into the development of the IEP prior to the meeting.
Two words doing two different jobs. Agreement is the parent and the agency arranging the meeting between them. Consent is the parent granting a permission, and the regulation reaches for it exactly when the missing person's own subject is on.
Who decides whether it's on the table? The parent or the person writing the agenda?
The table. And the meeting decides it, not the agenda. If the subject comes up, E1 was the wrong door.
What do we call a rule that needs two different words for the same empty chair?
Federal.
It needed a second paragraph to explain the first one.
It usually does.
Start with who they are. Is this member one of the four that paragraph reaches? Then ask the only other question that matters. Will their area be modified or discussed at this meeting? Yes, and you're an E2, consent plus written input. No, and you're an E1, written agreement and nothing more. The way I always read it, forget how I read it. Most teachers carry this one. The principal signs off so the teacher is covered. And it sounds right because the principal signs everything else in that building.
The premise is that the signature belongs to the district. It doesn't. It's the parents. The parent's written word is what excuses somebody. The agency's agreement is required too, and on its own, it does nothing.
Put both tests side by side. Paragraph E1. The area is not modified or discussed. The parent and the agency agree in writing and nobody owes any advance input. Paragraph E2. The area is modified or discussed. The parent consents in writing. The agency consents too, and that member's written input has to be in hand before anybody sits down.
The bottom row is the one that gets dropped. A district will collect the signature and treat the input as optional, and it is not optional.
Change one condition. Speech isn't on the agenda at all this time. Now it's agreement, not consent, and no written input is owed.
Correct. And the moment speech comes up mid-meeting, the condition that agreement was built on no longer holds.
So the agenda is the trigger, not the job title?
The agenda decides it. I mean, what actually gets discussed decides it, and agendas change in the room, Chris. Think of it like changing coverage on a car policy. The member's subject area is the coverage. The parent's signature is the policy change. The written input is the rider.
Okay, but what's a rider worth on coverage you never use? One catch, too. Unlike an insurer, the district doesn't get to decide you never use it. The parent does.
Plainly then, 4 things have to happen before an excusal counts when that person's area is on the table. The parent consents in writing. The agency consents as well. The member writes input into the development of the IEP, and that input reaches the parent and the team before the meeting, not during it.
4 boxes. Miss the last one, and the first 3 don't save you.
Does an email count as in writing?
In writing, signed, yes. Where an email stops being a signature, I genuinely don't know. Cynthia?
Neither do I, and I'm not going to invent it on camera. The regulation says in writing and stops there. Your state rules fill that in, and that's a real answer, not a dodge.
Before anyone files that away, the harder one is this. If the parent has to consent to an excusal, what happens when the parent simply says no?
Which excusal, though? The one where the area isn't discussed, or the one where it is? Those are 2 different answers.
The one where it is.
Then the member attends. Consent is a permission the parent gives, and paragraph E2 offers the agency no way around it. That person sits in the room, or the parties find a time both of them can take.
And the written input in paragraph E3 has to reach the parent, not only the
E2. There is no E3.
E2, thank you. Wrong paragraph, right point. The input goes to the parent and to the team in writing before anybody sits down.
And every one of those is a piece of paper somebody physically slides across a desk to a parent.
Which is why the input requirement carries more weight than the signature. A signature buys the district an empty chair. The input is the only thing that keeps that child's
And it has to land before, not read into the minutes afterward.
program in the room. Yes, before.
Then the excusal form isn't paperwork at all. It's the parent's veto printed on district letterhead. There's the second version I said nobody sends you. Same paragraph, one different word. So much for the person who's missing. Wait until you hear what the district owes you when the parent is. Professor Rahman, thank you. You kept us honest on a paragraph the two of us were about to split wrong on air.
Seconded. The distinction was the whole scene.
2 words. People have lost more over less.
Everything so far is about who gets to leave the room. The next stretch is where districts actually lose, and it's the parent who never got into it. 300.322.
"10 in the morning on a Tuesday, and the district calls this scheduled. 300.322 says scheduling isn't the job. Taking steps to get the parent there is the job."
Careful, steps isn't a vibe. The regulation names 2 of them out loud. Notify early enough that the parent actually has an opportunity to attend, and schedule at a mutually agreed on time and place.
The notice has a required content list too. Purpose, time, location, and who will be in attendance. Who will be in attendance. A parent who reads that line knows before anybody sits down which chair is going to be empty.
So the notice is where the excusal shows up first.
If anybody sends it, step 1, go read yours.
Think of the notice as the declarations page on that same policy. Nothing new about the coverage. It's the sheet that lists who is actually on it.
And the writer, to borrow Erica's word, is the only reason a missing name is a plan instead of a gap.
Or the district holds the meeting without them. It can, but only after it can't convince them to come, and only with a record behind it. Take a composite case. A first-year 5th grade teacher, call her Priya Raman, 3 IEP students on her roster.
3? I had it at 4.
4, maybe, doesn't matter. The parent missed 2 meetings. The district ran the 3rd without her, and when it got asked to show what it tried, the file had nothing in it. No call log, no letters, nothing.
The regulation names what that record can look like, and it gives 3 examples, such as not a ceiling, detailed records of telephone calls made or attempted, and the results of those calls, copies of correspondence sent to the parents and any responses that came back, and detailed records of visits made to the parent's home or place of employment and the results of those visits.
Missed that, and the meeting the district thinks it held is the one it can't prove it held?
3 items: calls, correspondence, visits.
This is my gym sign-up all over again. They swear somebody called. Nobody called.
Nobody ever calls.
Anyway, the list is still calls, correspondence, visits, 3 items, and a district holding none of them has no meeting to point at.
Okay, so if a parent works nights and the meeting's at 9, hang on, let me count the real options out loud. Phone, video, move the meeting. That's 3, and only one of them is hard.
Phone or video is the regulation's own answer, not a favor. If neither parent can attend, the agency uses other methods, and 300.328 names conference calls and video conferences outright.
There's a second sentence people skip in there too. The agency has to take whatever action is necessary to make sure the parent understands the proceedings, including arranging an interpreter.
And the parent walks out with a copy of the IEP at no cost. If you hold one line from today, hold that one. It's the cheapest sentence in the section and the one buildings forget.
You're right that the copy is the cheap part, Chris. Which is exactly why the harder question is the one nobody asks. What did that team have to consider before it wrote the document you're handing over? 4 things, and they're listed in 300.324. The strengths of the child. The concerns of the parents for enhancing the education of their child. The results of the initial or most recent evaluation. And the academic, developmental, and functional needs of the child. Not one of those 4 is optional, and not one of them is a formality you read into the minutes on your way to the goals page.
The parents' concerns are a required input, not a courtesy round at the top. And there's a second list right beside it, the special factors that only bites when it applies. Behavior that impedes learning, limited English proficiency, Braille for a child who is blind or visually impaired, communication needs, including for a child who is deaf or hard of hearing, and whether the child needs assistive technology.
Erica, you said consider. What does consider actually require?
It requires the team to take those 4 up in developing the IEP, not somewhere alongside it.
So consider isn't mentioned.
The regulation puts those 4 inside the development of the IEP. Where exactly that line falls in a hearing is a state and case-by-case question, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But we mentioned it is a thin place to be standing.
One more thing, and this is the kitchen table version of the whole episode.
There is no federal agenda, none. What the regulation requires is who has to be on the team, what the team must consider, what the notice has to contain, and the parent's free copy. It never says what happens first.
So the fixed agenda, the order of business, the hour-long block, who speaks first, somebody's habit, maybe a good habit, not a rule.
It matters the first time somebody tells you that's not how we do it. Ask which paragraph. If there isn't one, you're allowed to ask for a different order.
Still needed a second paragraph to explain the first.
Yeah, and that's the part that makes people quiet at their first one, Chris. They think the room has rules it doesn't have, so they don't ask for the ones it does.
Tonight, pull the last meeting notice you got and find the line that says who will be in attendance. 5 minutes at your own desk and you'll know which rule your building has been using.
Covered. If their area is discussed, the parent consents in writing and that person's input lands before the meeting. And the parent's copy of the IEP costs nothing, ever. If one line survives this episode, make it this one. The parent's pen is what empties a chair, and nothing else in that building can.
Send this to the teacher down your hall with their first one coming. 5 minutes now beats an hour of guessing at that table.
If this episode saved you 1 awkward minute at that table, like it and subscribe. This series is building a course, not a playlist, and the next one only works if you have this one. One we couldn't settle, and it's yours. Has the writer ever reached you before the meeting or only ever after it? That's us for today. Go read your notice and I'll see you at the next one.